Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or Mosi-Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS! This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised. I am Vigo the Carpathian, otherwise known as Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with the Keymaster, otherwise known as Louis Duran.
Good evening, I am the Keymaster.
And over here we have Gozer the Destroyer, otherwise known as Scott Thurlow.
I am a god.
And we are reviewing Ghostbusters 2016 with the all-female lead. Scott, do you have a funny logline for us?
The best one I've got is bitches are gonna bust some ghosts. And that's what happens in this movie.
So I will give the actual synopsis, which is watch the first Ghostbusters, and then it's a reboot of the first. The whole plot, plot point for plot point, are either subverted or referenced, and I mean it works on some levels. It doesn't on others.
It's not, just real quickly, it's not quite the Force Awakens thing, but it's similar. I would say somewhat.
It's more aware of what it's doing than
Yes.
the Force Awakens was.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
but we'll go into depth now. Louis, would you like to start with describing the introduction?
Yeah. So the intro, we start the movie with Kristen Wiig's character, Erin. She is just about to start, we're assuming a new term, and her class is about to begin. And the dean walks in and pretty much is giving her the... Well, is it the dean that walks in, if I remember right? Or was it the other guy?
It's a guy looking to...
Oh, yeah,
get
okay,
her
yeah.
to join.
Yeah,
There's a haunting at this hotel.
Yeah, the gentleman at the Aldridge
Mansion.
Aldridge Mansion that is looking for help because he believes it is haunted, and he references a book that Erin and her former colleague Abby, who was played by Melissa McCarthy, had co-written together, and this kind of throws Erin kind of catches her out of the blue, thinking that she actually wiped it from existence. And now it's on Amazon.
And she's somewhat embarrassed by having been involved.
Yeah, she's trying to get a tenure, and from then she's, we're introduced to the dean, who's pretty much trying to get a better accreditation for her.
Charles Dance, that is.
Yeah, Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, Tywin the Dean.
And so she ends up going all the way to Abby, trying to coerce her to pretty much let that disappear from existence. We're introduced to Holtzman, which is Kate McKinnon. And they have a department that they are actually studying supernatural phenomenon. They catch wind of, the Aldridge Mansion being haunted.
What happens in the very first thing is that a guy's giving a tour of the Aldridge Mansion.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
mentions
yeah,
that it's haunted, and then hauntings actually do happen to him after he guides his tour guide. So that's like the opening cold setup.
Sure, yeah, that's the best cold open. To fast forward back to the Aldridge Mansion, they come to discover using their apparatuses that it is haunted, and probably one of the better scenes that I remember seeing. Like the door opening was actually pretty really, really neat. And the ghost comes out, spews goo all over her, and they catch it all on camera. As soon as they come out, it gets posted online, and then I would say that pretty much sums up the intro.
Yeah, I agree. They get physical proof of a ghost, if you will. They're sort of like coming together. They're estranged friends, essentially, and Kristen Wiig is not all too happy about having her name associated with this book, which is basically discrediting her. She's trying to be professional, but it brings her back to her former partner and her new partner in the lab, and they meet up, investigate a ghost, and they see a ghost.
See, when I initially was going into this movie, I said that I didn't want to compare it to the original Ghostbusters. I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
I grew up with the Ghostbusters. I had all the little toys, so I wanted to divorce myself, except for the fact that they went to great lengths to tie themselves with the original. And we'll get into that more later on. But in the beginning, this is the library scene. In fact, they make a reference to joke about flying books in this.
Yeah, which I missed that first. You mentioned that to me afterwards.
I missed that.
The issue I have with the beginning is I wasn't yet sold on them as the Ghostbusters.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
They leaned heavily on kind of infantile humor and kind of
lowbrowish.
Very lowbrow. Occasionally it would be highbrow, but McCarthy and was it
Kate McKinnon?
McKinnon were very like childish and in the beginning, and
they were
Wig
juvenile, if you will.
Wig was doing her best Tina Fey impression of being an exasperated professional, and I don't know, I wasn't quite yet buying into it, even though I was trying to go into this with an open mind. But we'll explore later how they won me over. But I have to say, I wasn't. Maybe not until the second act did I really start getting into it. I really start getting into this movie.
I see what you mean. So I'll probably give intro a 1, but a soft 1 because of that same reason. You might give it a soft 0. I'm guessing that's what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. So I completely see what you mean. It took a little bit for me to like sort of get behind the ride, if you will. But once I did, yeah, as you said, and we'll speak about, I was fully invested in it. Mm. But I like the intro. I like the ghost. I like the Aldrich Mansion thing. It was a perfectly good setup, even with trying to ignore all the baggage of this franchise beforehand, I guess I want to say. So,
yeah, I have to agree also. I mean, I wasn't big on Ghostbusters growing up. I did watch the show and the movie. But I mean, that's as far as...
That counts.
I mean, that's as far as I would go with my fandom.
Sure.
So, I mean, obviously going into it, I did want to compare, but I also wanted to, as Dean said, like kind of divorce the two. And I mean, I thought the intro was fine. As I mentioned, the Aldridge part and the door, and there's very kind of creepy elements in this movie that kind of stood out to me. I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over them, but
no, they were well done though, right?
Yeah, so they're pretty well done, and it did good to kind of leave a little more to explore. Like the device also was there that did like it was that was a good setup. It was a good setup.
A MacGuffin, if you will, or Chekhov's ghost trap or whatever.
I actually, when I first saw that, thought it was the device that made the candle, because I understood that the candle was initially
they did a good little gag joke. So real quickly, what you mean is that the guy who gives the Aldrich tour has a little candle that he flips a switch and the candle falls off as he's describing the spooky story behind it. So like he knows about it, but then as he walks out, you see the camera pans down to a weird flashing light device thing that you're not sure what it is. Yeah. But it was good setup.
But it made you, at least I remembered it from the Aldrich when they referenced it later. I'm like, oh, that was a clever tie-in. Yeah. But again, as I mentioned, just a summation of say, the infantile humor, that's not my type of humor. If you're into that, you'll love the opening. Like, me, not so much, but it did eventually come to a meal, so I'm giving it a soft 0.
I'm giving it a soft 1.
And Louis?
Yeah, I'll go with 1.
Okay. And we're on to the body now with Scott.
All right, so right after the Aldrich Mansion ordeal, they end up, all three of them get discredited from their respective places of employment. So they have to sort of... This was also a nod to the original where they're trying to find a place to live and they find a firehouse, but it's too expensive. They can never afford it. So they then end up living like above a Chinese restaurant, like takeout restaurant. So they get set up and sort of... what's her name? Kate McKinnon is basically their tech specialist. She's explaining to them all that. And they hire... and since it's all gender swapped essentially, so they hire a Janine-like secretary, but of course it's Chris Hemsworth and he's a complete idiot. Although he is, yes, very attractive according to that, or at least Kristen Rigg instantly starts flirting with him. So they get set up, and they also, at this point, Patty is introduced. She originally works as an MTA agent, and then she encounters a ghost in the subway. And I think this is really well done. Like, they're having this big conversation, like, argument with each other, the three of them, and she's just, like, waiting outside, like, their little, like, shitty doorway. It's like, hey, I'm here, I have a ghost, like, I saw a ghost, maybe you guys can help me. So she's like, I want to join too. So they start to sort of forming their little unit, and they start learning like how to use their equipment, kind of very similar to the first one. And then I think we agreed that the big sort of set piece that sort of unites them is similar to the hotel scene in the first movie, where there's a rock concert going on, and basically a demon-ish ghost appears, and it was a big battle scene. Like they use their tactics and trap it. They actually get it into the ghost trap, the classic.
It's more of a gargoyle or a grotesque.
Yeah, all right, type, fair enough. I'll give you that. Sure.
Dragon-like, but demonish.
And we'll speak about this in Antagonist real quickly, but he is introduced a guy named Rowan, who everyone agrees is creepy. Like, anyone who encounters him, like, a creepy fucking Rowan guy, has some kind of, clearly a plan of some sorts to, I guess, draw out and magnify ghost power, I suppose. It's explained later on in the plot. But that's going on, so that's why all these events are happening. That's why the Aldrich thing happened. That's why the rock concert thing happened. That's why the subway ghost appeared. So yeah, they all started forming it, and they have that big battle. They get rid of the gargoyle ghost and get commendated by the city. But they're like, thank you, but keep this on the down low, please. Like, essentially. So yeah, they basically, we'll speak about the themes, I think, as well, but they sort of want to be credited with what they think is legitimate science, if you will, and it's hard for them here and there. But I mean, that entire scene exists to have them come together and formulate a bond with each other, and I think the jokes start getting better, as you were saying. The banter between them becomes a lot more friendly.
If I may jump in here, this is skipping ahead to characters for a moment, but Leslie Jones, when she joined the team, is really when this movie started selling it to me.
Okay.
Because she added a dimension that, like, Wig, McCarthy, and McKinnon were all quirky. Leslie Jones ended that Bill Murray type sarcasm to the group dynamic.
She's like your standard New Yorker.
Yeah, calm down now. Like, this is how it is. And it started to really gel for me. And they brought her in far earlier than they brought in Ernie Hudson in the original Ghostbusters.
True.
For the benefit of this movie, because all four of them work really well together. And the thing is, I can't tell you detail what sequence of events happened, because it's very scattershot. It's very kind of, not sketch comedy style, but sort of like, we have this funny idea for a scene. We're going to throw it in here for 5 minutes, and then we're going to have this scene in 5 minutes. But the enthusiasm that they put into this I started to join in with their enthusiasm. And there weren't many, like, raucous laughter moments, but I was steadily chuckling through the
there
majority
are enough
of the
quality
body.
jokes, I think, even if, as you said, you're not the biggest fan of lowerish brow stuff. But when they started doing a good mix of them, I think, here and there throughout as it went along.
And also, Chris Hemsworth added a very weird comedy aspect, but it worked well for him.
Kind of. It was all fine. So I don't know.
I totally agree. I had a good time. Obviously some of it was a little infantile, but the way that they mixed up the pop culture references, I think I mentioned before.
Yep.
With The Shining was really funny. Later on when we go with the mayor.
There's a good joke with the mayor. Probably one of our favorite jokes, we'll say.
Don't you dare compare me to the Jaws mayor. Something just so
it's
out of place,
joke,
but it's funny. And just like this, like, and it's not slapstick comedy. It's like with the Hemsworth with the, the aquarium bit with the phone. He's like, I can't answer the phone. It's in the aquarium. He's like, no. And like, it's just stupid things like that.
Sure. It's cartoonish, kind of.
Yeah.
Ignorant, absurdist humor in a way.
Kind of, yes. Sure. But so let's agree where the body cuts off. I think we do. Is where, so as they start getting clues, they start finding the devices in the places that ghosts are appearing. So I start putting it together, like they're basically reverse engineering how it works, and they figure out that someone is planting them along ley lines, which are like basically spectral energy sources that can align and then magnify power, and that's basically what they figure out what he's doing.
Can I cut you off at that moment?
Sure.
So they do a fantastic job of Charmed magic babble and Star Trek techno babble,
kind of, yes.
Combining
but it all sells itself.
They'll go off on these long, like, kind of like, the negation of the proton, extreme
particles. Sure,
good. Yeah, I believe that to be total physics. There you go.
Yeah, but it works. Like,
it worked.
They had that stuff in the original too, and like it worked well here as well, I would say. So I think when they figure out that someone has some kind of master plan, and then actually, speaking about Leslie Jones, I do like the fact that she was like very knowledgeable about the history of New York. So she's kind of the one who figures out like where the nexus is going to be. Yeah. And they go to the hotel where this Rowan guy works at, and he's building like basically a ghost machine to unleash all the vengeful spirits. And they figure that that's his plan. So I think that's about where the body cuts off. Right when he starts to enact his plan, I think is where the body ends. Yeah, go ahead.
I would extend that a little bit more.
Okay.
The villain ends up committing suicide.
So they think, sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, he
does. Yeah.
But,
I mean, but it's all part of the plan.
They think that it basically his plan failed, but it's more to get him into the spirit realm so that he can work in possessing things from there. So I think that at this point, it's like the police take over and they go like, "Good job, Ghostbusters. Now you can go back home." And they all start to realize separately that things are starting to, like, this isn't the end of the story yet.
Well, yeah, one thing also that I really like that they tied in is that Rowan used their book from what we saw in the beginning. Like that was like a huge catalyst to how he was able to use these devices, because they even mention it, like, these look like a lot of what Kate McKinnon's been putting together.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. It was. I agree.
It's just a different model or just different setup.
It was his alterations to their ideas, essentially.
Yeah.
It was a good touch. Agreed.
I want to give this a 1.
I'm giving it a solid 1 as well.
Yeah, I'll give it a 1.
Okay. And we're on to the conclusion with me. Now, because it's a subversion on the original conclusion from the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
You have the hotel, you have a portal to a different dimension.
Yep.
This time it's in the basement, and instead of the
good
top,
point.
you have and you have them all trying to race together. Earlier on in the story, McKinnon is what's her Holtzman develops all of these like kind of weapons that they can use to fight ghosts. So here's the big action brawl. You have at one point there's all these balloon floats that have been possessed.
Ghostly balloons, if you will. Yeah.
So one of them is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which is a great thing. It just falls over and lands on top of 3 of them. And Kristen Wiig's character, Aaron, stabs with a Swiss Army knife, deflating it. That's the end of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
There it is. There he was, and there he goes.
Rowan, the villain of the story, possesses Chris Hemsworth's character and ends up using his good looks with Rowan's ghostly brains to start opening up these portals and stuff. So he becomes the kind of the main villain until it all gets into like they're battling ghosts through the streets of Manhattan. It's very much an action movie set piece.
Yes, it becomes a huge set piece in Times Square.
Then they reach the mansion. There's a lot of complications here. Slimer at one point had stolen the Ecto-1, and they end up using it as a nuclear bomb in order to shut the...
Reverse polarity of ghost particles, whatever their techno-babble was, but it was fine.
Again, trying to explain it makes it sound ridiculous, but it doesn't. Basically, Rowan turns to a giant ghost from the symbol for Ghostbusters, and they end up battling.
Their own logo attacks them, but...
and they save the day.
Yeah.
Watch the movie.
So, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like we were saying a little bit of precast that the action scene itself kind of felt jarring at first, but then it was perfectly fine. It fit in perfectly well. So I had no problem with it at the end of the day. And like you said, the subversion with the Stay Puft Marshmallows Man was pretty good.
It also used some of these actresses' ability for comedy and like where they're comfortable at being themselves. Melissa McCarthy, actually, I think one of the best jokes she had was she's played before like action roles where she's bumbling a little bit, almost a Chris Farley type character, where she has these like ghost grenades basically that only affect the ghost. So she ends up wanting to bat it into the battle. She throws it up in the air and misses with a bat, so has to just kick it with her foot over. But that's totally her style of humor. That's what really works for her.
I agree.
You have Kate McKinnon, who has built these dual pistols for her and she
can't wait to use them.
Yeah, and she's like super, like that's her character's super enthused, and she's like, it actually really got invested in this action set piece of her going around taking out ghosts.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, it was all well done, and I think again perfectly solid. I'm definitely going to give it a 1.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a soft 1 because I don't think it. I never thought that I never bought into the stakes of this movie.
All right, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'd say, sorry to cut you off, but I'll give it a soft 1 also because I did like the action scene. The lead up was really great, but it just didn't seem like there was really much at stake. And like
I see what you guys mean.
The part like the one that really kind of stands out to me is that the part where Melissa McCarthy gets pulled into the portal. And then Kristen Wiig goes in to like get her. I'm like, okay, like I didn't really see that coming, and it just didn't seem like there was a lot going on there.
Actually,
I see what you mean.
I forgot about that part, oddly enough, but there was, I don't think, there's a character resolution there with it showing that Aaron and McCarthy, who used to be very close friends, who had drifted apart in life. And that Aaron, who, in a sense, was forced to sacrifice a lot of her like goals in life, and this is what she found, was now willing to sacrifice herself for McCarthy. I understand that as a character thing, but I don't understand that as a narrative device. There was nothing that they...
No, I get it. I do completely see what you guys are saying about that, and I agree with that, if that one angle. But I'm saying overall, I didn't really have a problem with it per se.
I do. There's another with... The end of the Avengers movie, where Tony Stark ends up going into the with the nuclear warhead in the first one, And that actually contributed to his post-traumatic stress disorder. The fact of that was a very not only strong character moment, but was a narrative.
All right, so you're saying it was handled better there, even though they were similar, seemingly like.
Well, but intense. That's the only thing I can really compare it to. So, and I don't know what the narrative purpose of it was.
That one had, I'd say that one had more tension for sure. Mm-hmm. But this one, it just, I don't know. Although like I said, I'd keep it a soft one also because I did find it funny that the logo became
attacked by your own
logo.
Attacked.
But I mean, also like if you want to, even like add a little more to it, it's just they're combating the original Ghostbusters as well. So it's like not only that, but like the franchise is like trying to kill and crush them or kill them.
Funny,
so
I mean, it's really funny. It depends like how much meta commentary I guess you want to take of it. Like for instance, Ian had said to us, mentioning the Stay Puft thing where they're being crushed by the weight of their own like past, if you will, the ghosts of their own past. Which even the name of the book that they wrote was Ghosts of Your Past or something. So I mean, that's all really funny, but I don't know how much the filmmakers themselves thought about it. But I mean, you can get that out of it for sure, and I think it doesn't detract in any way. I think it might add something if you think about it and get that out of it. So I don't know, like I'll have to give it a solid 1. Like I said,
if I have to rank it, Ghostbusters 1 was far better than this.
Yes.
I think this is better than Ghostbusters 2.
Maybe.
So
I could see a decent debate about that. But all I'm saying, like I think that's my impression and my score of it. At least
so I'm giving it a soft 1 as well. Yeah. So 1's all around.
Yeah.
Okay. And on to themes with Louis.
Okay, so nothing that I could really. I have 2 that I came up with. That the first one I'll kind of like briefly touch on.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's really a theme. It was just more of a like something I noticed that in the original, like it was a huge thing about kind of like their present, like the Ghostbusters' presence. It was funny how they used, I think, pretty sure in the original, like the radio, people were talking about it on the phone, like calling in news stations, saying like, well, like, are these guys legit or not, and everything like that. But also there was a backdrop of like, I guess it was in the 80s, if I remember right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So maybe like it was nearing towards the Cold War, but the nuclear device was a huge thing. Like you can't have a reactor in the middle of, in New York City. So that was a huge thing like that to shut them down. But this one, like they have reactors on their back, they have it on the car. Nobody bats an eye. But the one thing that they were like, we can't let people know because it will cause mass hysteria. This has been going on for a while. We just say it's terrorism. One of those things. Like, we'll just twist the narrative in media. Off that,
they did make that commentary.
There was 2 villains in the original Ghostbusters. One was the spiritual realm, and the other was the bureaucracy.
Yes.
Like, why are we worrying about EPA regulations over Ghostbusters when there's an immediate threat that these people can solve? And you had the mayor who was torn between the idea of, like, both the religion, because he had the cardinal, I think, with him, who was discussing. Mm-hmm. You had like the EPA and that kind of. This handled differently because it's a different world that this exists in.
Sure.
I mean, time frame wise too. So that you're right about the terrorism thing, but it's also the idea of America's not as obsessed as in the 80s with the idea of federal regulations. It is a little bit, but not as much as it was. But what is the idea of Homeland Security, secrecy, the idea of we need to, like, you're right. You handle this, but let us take care of the messaging.
Sure, we'll spit it for you, essentially.
Like now we're going to fake arrest you.
And also the fact that I think the mayor from the initial one was not necessarily incompetent, but ineffectual because he was being pulled by all these organizations.
Sure.
Andy Garcia, who I think he was the best, not cameo necessarily, but like one of the best supporting characters.
Sub-characters, if you will.
Was a career, obviously, in the short time he had, a career politician who was more interested in his image and more interested in, don't compare me to the mayor from
Don't ever compare me to the mayor from Jaws.
Yeah. And I think that's showing that how we view, in a way, our politicians today, which is the idea of like incompetent, selfish people looking out for themselves.
I mean, I guess
and not really aware of what's going on.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just again, my devil's advocate question is: did the filmmakers, those involved, like, was that really their intent, or is it just sort of there?
I don't think it matters if it's their intention or not.
That's what we're talking about.
The subtext.
Fair enough,
because if they're just building it off of, in a way, the impressions that they have from what popular views are of it, then like that's where we are, and it's more of not necessarily a direct message, but necessarily a mirror that's being held up to how we view our politicians.
That's fair, and you're right about the terrorism thing. Like, I think that was some of the most obvious commentary and well done about it. Or like at the very end, they're interviewing the mayor and like the reporter's like, "Are you gonna sit here and tell me like that terrorists poisoned our water and they weren't actually ghosts?" Like that was a nice little detail. Like I like that line too. That was a good joke as well, with the commentary about the state of politics, I guess, as you were saying about. So sure, I guess it's just that I don't know. I don't know if it's enough for me to give it a 1 on that front.
I don't know if there's anything.
I can't think of anything else that could be like thematic. I guess the theme of friendship, but that's like always there. Like,
well, another thing was like the underdog story.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
No,
like,
but they also had two aspects of how education is in America today.
Kind of.
Kristen Wiig is trying to get tenure at Columbia, so she's willing to do anything and necessarily suppress her desire, her actual instinctual passions in order to get that. And then you have McCarthy and McKinnon at State University B or whatever it is. They're not even aware that they're there.
Sub college.
Oh, thank you for reminding me you're fired. Basically. So
yeah, I think they said like you're only the dean or whatever because the guy before you went to jail or something like that.
But again, I don't think any of these are the major themes, so I kind of agree with you on that.
So yeah, I mean, you can get that commentary, I suppose, but I don't think it's enough to be a theme in and of itself. And maybe it's not really the fault of the movie because it's not trying to do that. But I just don't think there's enough there.
Well, I think again, they make so many comparisons to the original Ghostbusters. I can't because the original Ghostbusters was actually they didn't really speak to any of this, but they delved into the idea of like the religious implications of what ghosts mean
if they exist. Sure,
they had you mentioned earlier the pastors. They had the cardinal. They had all these like figures there. There's actually, I think, one of the best moments in Ghostbusters was when Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd were driving across the bridge towards the end of the movie and just discussing the implications of what happens. Things are moving too fast in this movie for any of these characters to sit down and be like, "What does this mean?"
They can have a serious break to discuss that. Sure.
Yeah. So maybe we're definitely grasping at straws with the themes, but I mean obviously another one that I was thinking about was the science versus supernatural. Like, how can both exist in the same world? But like I said, like I don't. That's just about it, really. Like I don't.
Magitech.
Yes, sure. Technomancy. But yeah, all I'm saying is I don't think there's enough there for me to give it credit on.
I agree.
What they had. So I have to give it maybe a soft 0, but still got to be a 0.
Even I couldn't create something out of nothing.
You can't pull a theme out for this one, buddy.
What about you, Louis?
Yeah, I'll go 0.
Okay, and Scott, you're on to antagonist.
All right, so I actually I thought they did a good job. I liked I can't remember the guy who played Rowan. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was sort of like the standard, again, almost a subversion, like the creepy guy that he's like, I think he encounters Leslie Jones early on and spits some weird like cryptic prophecy thing, but that triggered like later on. She remembers, oh yeah, that's the dude who said that crazy shit to me, and he's a picture of him working at the hotel where his little ghost bomb machine, portal machine is being built. But I kind of liked his plan that he had a plan to use ghosts for some greater purpose, unleashing them, essentially empowering him to be leader of ghosts. He's going to lead the 4th cataclysm, I think he said it was. So, like, while there wasn't a lot to him, I guess, he wasn't on screen very often, but when he was, what they did have of him, I liked his plan. I liked his motivations. I believed them. They made sense. Even though if he wasn't, like, the most fully fleshed out villain ever, I think he carried it enough on that front. So, again, maybe soft 1, but I think they did a pretty good job with him. And like you said, like sort of the mayor, not the villain per se, but he's the career politician. So he's going to, be bureaucratically blocking them sometimes, if you will. But I don't think he approaches like villain status really.
So I was torn between this because initially, like, I don't mind the villain. Like, I think the actor did a very good job with what he was given. Yeah. But he was just a kind of dork,
like I said, in a way. It's kind of a standard fair thing. Yeah. Oh, everyone bullied me, and now I'll be like the ghost bully to get them back, I guess, and lead all the other bullied ghosts.
Except the fact that they change actors halfway through when he possesses Chris Hemsworth, and Hemsworth goes from being. I thought it was actually a fine acting job by Chris Hemsworth because he kind of did. I believed that Chris Hemsworth was acting as the guy who came before him. Yeah. It didn't change it. It felt like the personalities were exactly the same. So I liked him more as this person we met who's just a dumb guy who's gotten behind his looks, now has an evil ghost brain. And I think that worked really well for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I never really for the sake of the movie, I bought into to Rowan and his motivations and everything, I guess, but I can't. Like, for me, for antagonist, I'll score 0.
That's fair. Like, I can see that, but I think it's enough for me that I liked what was there. I liked well enough to give it a, again, if not solid 1, then soft 1, but still 1.
I'm going to give it a 1 based on your lucky Chris Hemsworth. You yourself got a 1 for that.
All right.
So, protagonist is me. So we have the 4 protagonists here. You have Kristen Wiig as Erin, and I like Kristen Wiig in general.
I like her a lot as well.
Yeah,
agreed.
And I thought she was doing her. Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. Best Tina Fey impression.
Sure, but is that? I'm going to ask you real quickly. Is that necessarily a bad thing for this?
Well, I think it was funny because we were talking about which, like, before we saw this movie, we were talking about which actresses
were supposed to be
would do a better job, and I said I think Tina Fey would do a better job, and well, you know, Kristen Wiig is playing Tina Fey. You have McCarthy as
Melissa
Abby.
McCarthy is Abby. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And McCarthy's style of humor, I feel that she's the female Chris Farley in a lot of ways. Maybe that's unfair to a certain extent, but I think they have a similar sense of humor.
Kind of. I mean, I see what you're saying, even though if I don't personally agree it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it's similar, sure.
I thought she did a fine job in this. Again, she doesn't really.
She's not my thing.
I don't go to a movie to see Melissa McCarthy, but she didn't detract from this at all.
Yeah, I agree. See, real quickly, like, this could sound bad, but I thought she was going to drag this movie down. Mm-hmm. But in fact, I think she did a good job.
Yeah, me too. Usually, like, a lot of, from what I've seen in some of her movies, it's a lot of physical comedy. Usually it works, but I've seen it, like, fail miserably.
Yes, exactly. And I was sort of hesitant about that.
Actually, her sense of humor in this was very different than what I usually see from her.
Sure, I guess it wasn't the usual Melissa McCarthy fare, if you will, but it was still similar. Like, yeah, she knows how to do good comedy in her style, and I think she did it well with her character in this.
I fell in love.
You're in love with Kate McKinnon, yes, we know.
From this movie, I like the idea of a quirky, intelligent, crazy. That works for me. So I can't accurately judge her work here because
biased.
Yeah, I'm admitting my bias here.
Well, she did a good job as well.
I think she could have pulled it back a little bit. Not a lot, maybe a little bit.
I think at the beginning she was a little like, here's the thing. We'll speak about this, I think, in dialogue soon enough. Mm-hmm. But she was a little too enthusiastic. So it made me like, as if she was like trying too hard in the beginning. But then she sort of settled into her role. And I started liking her more and more throughout.
But Leslie Jones was phenomenal. I was shocked because from the trailers, she might have had
some of the best jokes.
Yeah, from the trailers, all it was like the power of pain compels you. I'm like, is this what? No, she worked perfectly. She has great sarcastic timing to her,
and I think, like as I said just briefly before, she plays like a hardcore New Yorker, right? She's not taking shit from anybody, and certainly not from any ghosts either.
So I want to say that we have a lot of like talented female comedians here. Or talented comedians, I'll say. And without Leslie Jones, this movie would be getting a much lower score.
I think it would have definitely lost something. I might have still given it a 1 without her, but she definitely elevates it. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'll give it a 1 just because having 4 leads or 4 protagonists, it would be really hard to have.
It's hard to balance that.
Yeah, but they all had different comedy. Like the range of comedy was really good. Like Melissa McCarthy was a little physical. Kristen Wiig kind of played the straight lady. Like she didn't add a lot. Comedy was being done towards her usually.
Yes,
she was getting all the slime on her and everything like that. Things were happening, and she even points it out. She's like, "I think the slime's out to get me."
Yeah,
it's only happening to me. Yeah, like Leslie Jones was sarcastic, and I mean McKinnon obviously was like, she added a different element that I did warm up to. I just wish it was dialed back a little bit, but just to have Ford having to continue to do that throughout the movie it's always really, really, really
sure.
good.
This is one of the reasons I scored the beginning lower, was that I felt kind of an embittered quality, or the idea that Wiig was initially playing a character that McCarthy and McKinnon and probably Wiig herself wanted to tear down a little bit. The idea, like, I felt a little bit of bitter humor towards her. And I don't know if that was intentional, but I just kind of got this like sense of like
You got that from it? Sure.
and it kind of it's turned me off of the because it's punch like it was a different sort. It wasn't a laughing with you. It was laughing at a type of person that I think they got out of as the movie went on. But that was my big gripe with the initial.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I certainly agree with both of what you just said, that it's difficult a bit to have 4 comedic actors like sharing screen time, all being protagonists, and all having their own sort of distinct style to them, but all gelling together to create a team. And I bought into it completely. As you said, a little bit hesitant perhaps at first, but as it went on, I believed them and I liked them, and they did a good job collectively.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a 1.
Yep,
Definitely.
me too.
Yeah, 1.
Okay, and we're on to supporting characters with Louis.
So I mean, we talked a little bit before, but Mayor Bradley, was it Andy Garcia?
He was Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia, yeah, he definitely stood out. I mean, he like, of course, it is Andy Garcia, but like just the presence that he has, well, like the lines that they wrote for him. I mean, we'll go in that dialogue. Was really good. So go ahead.
I just want to make one comment about Andy Garcia there, because it's sort of completely different what he normally. He's playing a mock version of himself.
Yes, clearly,
which is like this tough guy who's just. This is the same role that Chris Hemsworth played. Like they're just the dumb tough guy in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Chris Hemsworth as Kevin. He was pretty good for supporting. I mean, it's funny, like as we said, there's a whole subversion to it, and like it's the good thing that nothing like all the leading ladies weren't sexualized in any way, but obviously like they were. Maybe like 2 of them were sexualizing. Mostly Kristen Wiig was sexualizing Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. So like it was pretty funny to see that. I don't know that obviously Bill Murray as Dr. Heiss.
Yep.
Which I think was pretty good. The best scene that he had was, I mean, pretty much the only scene.
I didn't know he was going to be in this movie as a cameo. I did not.
No idea. Me neither. Actually,
maybe they kept that under wraps or something. But I grinned to myself when he showed up as the debunker. So basically like an old man who's known to debunk the ghost stories, and then he confronts them, and then he gets killed by a ghost.
It's very zombie-landish.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they actually had every single character from the original.
Well, the surviving cast. Dan Aykroyd plays a random. I was going to bring that one up. Bill Murray probably is like, a tradition of if one stands out, he's probably it. Garcia is definitely like just behind him. But when all the ghosts are like being unleashed, and Kristen Wiig has to try to meet up with the rest of her crew. She's like separated from them. She tries to call a taxi, and old Dan Aykroyd shows up, and she's like, "I get to wherever." He's like, "Lady, I ain't going there. I don't drive crazy people. I ain't afraid of no ghosts." And just drives away.
Yeah, it's just perfect. It's just like a level 4 T something or whatever.
It's just level 3 flying repeating phantasms or whatever, which is something from the first one. Yeah, it was great. I loved it. There were many others too. They had Janine, the original secretary from the first film. She played the
clerk at the hotel.
The hotel clerk, yep. And there was 1 or 2 others, like Sigourney Weaver, like showed up at the very end.
Was brilliant. In
the ending credits, like the scroll over the credits as McKinnon's mentor, and like they're very similar. Like it's obvious that she would be this person's mentor. There was anything I'm forgetting. Oh, Charles Dance we mentioned as the dean. Oh, and there were 2 agents, the FBI or the Homeland Security agents, who tried to sweep it all, like spin the story about what happened. One guy's the guy from UCB. And the other guy, I think, was in Boardwalk Empire. So it's kind of funny to see them. They weren't in it very much, but they did a good job with what they had.
Again, though, if I have to give the best, I disagree with you about Bill Murray. I say that Andy Garcia had the best joke, and Bill Murray was number 2.
He definitely had the best joke. I agree with that, but
best.
I see what you mean. Sure.
Again, so the one of the real strengths of this movie is his supporting cast, and the fact that
totally
he can get a bunch of people in this.
Yeah. So I think they all get a strong 1 from me collectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially those 2.
1's all around for supporting character, and now we're onto dialogue with Scott.
Alrighty, this one's a bit difficult. We sort of talked around it leading up to this. So here's the thing, right? As you had said, E, some of the style of humor is not my style of humor. So when they started going for those kinds of jokes, I was like, But when they had like the good lines, when they started going through like the higher brow lines, like the Shining reference, the Jaws reference, Dan Aykroyd's little thing, that's kind of stuff I love. And I also started again believing that they were becoming a tight-knit little group as the movie went on. So their jokes got more in, sort of, if you will. Like they could dig at each other in a friendly-ish way, but in a more knowing manner, I guess I want to say. And yeah, so I don't know, like, nothing was bad about it. There was nothing cringeworthy necessarily, except if there's a joke you're not gonna like, then of course that might be cringeworthy. But it wasn't bad per se. This joke is not for me, but this one is.
They didn't drag on any of the humor so that it could ever become a scene which becomes cringeworthy.
They didn't overplay any gags, so I'll give them a lot of credit on that front for sure. So, like,
the thing is, the original Ghostbusters is a very quote-worthy movie.
Yes,
and
sure,
this one, oddly enough, the only thing I could see anyone quoting from this is perhaps an Andy Garcia line.
yeah.
Which I might make a thing here, but nonetheless, I would never. I don't know. I don't see any quotes coming from Kristen Wiig or from
the main character.
Is that you can't say that that's the end all and be all of a good comedy.
No, agreed.
Of course. We were in a pretty full theater. It's opening weekend for Ghostbusters. And we went mid-afternoon as well. So this is not the prime time for. There wasn't. I've been to comedies where people like are laughing heartily throughout
the whole time. Sure.
This was more of a. Yeah, it happened maybe 3 times.
I think it was scattershot. I think like some people would laugh at one kind of joke, and we would sit there silently, and then we would laugh at a reference, and then no one else was laughing.
I remember going like, throughout the entire
Chuckles
movie,
here and there,
and I think that really when you're assessing a comedy, the dialogue scene really comes in because there's a lot of funny banter. There's a lot of, but there's nothing. I'm going to give it a soft 1 overall because it's not the strongest dialogue I've ever seen in a comedy. It's not particularly quote-worthy. It's not, but it wasn't draggy at all.
Yeah, it sold me on it. Like I was gonna almost give it a soft 0, but I may end up giving it a soft 1 for that very same exactly what you just said. So yeah, I agree. Like it wasn't the strongest per se, but there was nothing I particularly hated about it. And when it when the chuckles came, it got me chuckling. So
yeah, for me, I'll give it a soft 1. To expand on besides the comedy and everything, like the exposition, a lot of the lines were. Obviously we're in a universe where like science and the supernatural exist in the same plane. So yeah, like when they start describing all their tech or what they're going to do, the strategy and all that, it's like Star Trek as we mentioned earlier. Okay, like I'll roll with it. Sure. Yeah, why not? But yeah, with the comedy, like a lot of the things that I laughed at weren't lines, so to speak. Like the one thing, the part where Kristen Wiig goes to see the mayor in the when he's having dinner with, I guess, like some
dignitaries,
yeah.
Diplomats.
It was diplomats. And everything starts shaking, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's happening!" Like, no, they're just pulling a dumpster.
Yeah, that's
in
front. That's right.
That was a really good joke. But but it's not dialogue though, so it's fine. And a lot of it was very tongue in cheek, like like when they make Melissa McCarthy makes her first poster, she's like, see something, say something. And it's like, that's why we're getting a lot of calls.
That's the terrorist line.
Yeah, so
that's why
that's
calling and reporting.
Like, that's pretty good.
That was a good joke for sure as well.
But a lot of it for the sake of pop culture and everything. And I'll give it a soft 1. Like I was chuckling, throughout. Nothing, no knee slappers.
Yeah, I didn't sigh or like roll my eyes or anything. So I just didn't laugh when the style, like in the more juvenile stuff was happening. But I didn't resent it about it. So yeah, soft-ish 1, but still 1.
So this 1's all around, I believe, and we are on to style with me. And it was okay. It was good the CGI was good.
I think it was more than okay. It was perfectly fine.
It was CGI. I'm an old school practical effects curmudgeon.
Yeah.
There was some very clever usage of ghosts, but there wasn't anything particularly unique to this that wasn't in the original Ghostbusters. And music-wise, you're dealing with either the original songs or covers of the original, which didn't work for me.
Remixes, yeah, sure.
For the imagery, it's either subversions of stuff that was in the original or straight references. So yeah, that worked on a level, but not enough for me to give it a 1.
See, I somewhat disagree. That I see what you're saying about the CGI thing, but I didn't mind it. Like, I don't know what else you wanted to do instead. like practical effects of ghosts, I guess, but that might have looked even worse if they tried to do that without CGIing it. And what they like, I like the balloon stuff. That was really cool. Even before the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that was just cool outright. And like the Puritan army or whatever, like a bunch of Puritans and the big like Boris Karloff looking ghost, that was cool. So like I had no problem with it. Was it the most like revelatory, like mind blowing stuff ever? No, but it all worked perfectly fine. I think the gargoyle demon looked pretty cool. I thought the possessed mannequin was fine. Have I seen that before? Yes, but it still worked.
Yeah, you know where I saw it before in Scooby Doo movies.
Yes. Okay.
And that's one of the problems. Like, yeah, it worked, but it was still on I don't know, like a slightly childish level.
I guess again, I see what you mean completely. It's just to me that it didn't get to me. So you'll probably give it a 0, like a soft 0, or I'll probably give it a soft 1.
Right.
Yeah, I can't read too much into the style just because it suffers from just being a blockbuster movie.
Yeah,
like it's in the middle of summer. It already has a lot of controversy behind it, and it's a franchise reboot. So I mean, it's going to have a lot of money thrown at it because they want to get the revenue. They want to get everything. They want to cash in on a new generation, becoming fans. And like obviously they picked like a director that his vision was probably just going to be like that. Nothing on his list really stands out as being visionary. So I'd say give it a 1 for the sake of it. Just keeping me entertained through the movie. Like I just went in there entertainment, and I was entertained. The CGI was fine. I did wish maybe, like, of course I wanted a little practical, like the original had like the miniature models with the and all that. But like I know, like today's day and age, people don't want to really see that. That's fine. Like I said, I'll give it a soft 1.
Well, I enjoy being a curmudgeon. So
yes, I know you do. Sure. Well, alrighty then.
All right, and Louis, it's on to you with recommendations.
Okay, so we've mentioned it a lot throughout this podcast that pretty much, if you want to see this movie, you can watch the original, and it's pretty much the same plot. A little subversion here and there, but overall, it's a blockbuster movie. It's middle of summer. If it's your kind of thing, like, yeah, why not? Like, it's probably one of the better movies coming out right now.
I might agree with that, and I would say like you said, it's probably better than the second Ghostbusters originally. So like you could probably coin flip. Like if you're really a serious fan of the first one, you could see this one and probably be quite satisfied with it.
Yeah. Or at least the references that they do.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you need to have seen the first Ghostbusters in order to enjoy this one?
I don't think so. I think you will if you, like, of course, you'll get the references and subversion of stuff, but if you had if you were somehow had zero idea about the original film, you could just go into this blind, I think, and still enjoy it as is.
Okay. Well, I recommend it as well because it was a decent
I'll give it a solid
blockbuster.
recommendation, yeah.
I don't know how long after this I'll remember it. But I don't, like, for instance, if you look at, like, Bridesmaids, that was kind of a revolutionary movie in its way, and this doesn't hold the same weight that
I guess
that did. And I believe that's the same director as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who did it.
Yep.
I mean, but it was better than other reboots, but not as good as some.
Sure.
So it's kind of a middling, I think.
I'd say it's decent, but it's definitely worth a watch. I've certainly seen worse reboots and worse movies in that same vein already this summer.
Yes.
So I think while my final thoughts, I guess, would say it may not live up to the hype, but almost nothing ever will these days.
Yes.
But I think it does a damn good enough job to deserve the credit it got.
I certainly wasn't bored at any point.
Yes, exactly.
So, well, I'll tally the final scores. Scott gave it the highest score with a 9.
That's a little bit higher than I thought it would, but still, go on.
Louis gave it an 8, and I gave it a 7, giving an overall score of an 8.
I think that's probably about right.
That's fair, yeah.
I think that's about where Rotten Tomatoes is. If Rotten, maybe that's a little bit lower on Rotten, I think.
It was. We looked up earlier, but like the pre-released scores, and it was something like that. So I think it's about right.
I think you won't. The idea that people are like, if you go in wanting to hate it, you're going to hate it
regardless. Yeah. Sure.
But if you go in with an open mind, it's not going to offend. It doesn't ruin Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's. I don't want to say this was the best thing I could say, but I think if they give them they could have very well done that. I don't think they did at all. I think they did a fine job. Stands on its own, and sure, if you have an affinity for the franchise, then you may get more out of it on top of that.
And you can tell they're enthusiastic about.
And everyone involved was having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So, any other final thoughts? All right, I'm Jonathan E. Menser, here with Scott Thurlow.
Time to go bust my own ghosts. Good night.
And Louis Duran.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good one.
This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manzer.
This has been a Los Angeles production. All rights reserved.